Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 469 for September 28th, 2022. My name is Russell Frost. I am your host for tonight's exciting adventure into advanced tech mobility and sustainable energy. Let me introduce this amazing panel, and we will get this show on the road. But first, big shout out to my lovely daughter in Florida, who is hunkered down with her husband in Mulberry, Florida. Luckily, not directly on the path of Ian. No, they've moved about 15 miles to the west of the path of Ian. We hope it keeps moving a little bit east because you want to be on that west side. The east side, that's where the rough stuff goes down. And all my other friends that are there, and I have more than a few, hopefully they will be hunkering down and being safe, and hopefully their insurance is going to cover whatever happens, because I've already seen photos from her. She's way up north of where it is now, and her screen enclosure is already gone and some of the fencing's blown down. It's not fun. So shout out to everybody in Florida. Stay safe, please. Don't do anything silly. Hopefully most of you evacuated and you're already someplace safe. My friend in Northern California, the co-host and the amazing writer, director, voice actor. She's a multi-talented individual, Georgia McKenzie.
Just sleepless. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. Let's get the show on the road, Russell.
Let's. Next to her is my friend in the Mid-Atlantic region. I like to think of him as Mr. Supercharger. It is Kacey Green.
Speaking of superchargers, that's how I did all of my evacuations, including one to Florida.
There you go.
This feels wrong. I'm going to Florida to get away from a hurricane.
I think you were confused, Kacey.
It worked.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of that, co-founder of this show, Danny Cooper, is actually in the path of Ian in a few days. Now, will that change? It certainly could, because that's more of a long distance prediction, but hopefully Danny will be safe, and friends in Charlotte will be safe as well. My friend in the Pacific Northwest with the most interesting office background on the show, probably, although I try really hard, Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello. Looks like it'll be a good show. Let's get it rolling. Although this number, it's not 420 and it's not 69, but it still makes me want to make an Elon joke, but I'm not sure.
All 469.
Please?
No. It's just.
Are you 469?
I'm not again it.
Leave all of that alone there.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that. I'm trying to encourage the foolishness. Well, a man who never encourages foolishness. He is the host of the Tesla Life, one of the founders of the Waterloo Regional Electric Vehicle Association, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is safe, and let's get to the news.
Let's get to it. We're going to start today with an article from The Drive. And we've often talked on this show about Norway and how Norway has been very aggressive as a country using their petrochemical petrochemical profits to enable electric vehicles. And they have aggressively funded electric vehicles for their people and infrastructure. And they've done a really amazing job. The thing that they've just sort of figured out, and what this Drive article kind of goes into, is that that's not all it takes. And in a way, this isn't news. We've said this before, that it's not just a matter of a one-to-one replacement gas car for an electric car. It just continues on with a lot of the same problems that we're already fighting. We need to augment that. We need to diversify, just like our electrical grid needs to be diversified. Different methods for a generation and storage. Same thing with transportation. It's not just enough to electrify cars. We have to electrify buses. We have to increase bus service, mass transit, light rail, whatever it is. And Norway, in fact, in this Drive article, has learned that, and they are starting to redirect some of their resources towards other things. And you know what? Once again, they're ahead of us. Good for them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all I got.
Well, it's nice to see people actually taking the big, bold step of saying, hey, guess what? having your own personal vehicle is not necessary. You can get on a community vehicle and be even greener than just your EV. But unfortunately, I think we're a little too spread out in almost all places in America, with very few metropolitan exceptions, and there's just so little love and support for transportation. But good public transportation is amazing, and it just resolves so many problems much better than cars. I really wish we got into this mindset.
We could probably kind of emulate some of this if we took our population centers and did something about them like this, but then maybe converted even a quarter of the available parking that we have left after all of that into the folks that are coming in from the exurbs and rural, and maybe kind of incentivize people to either become more rural and farm, or to bring them back into the city because everything's now more convenient with walkable, bikeable, public transportation. Because kind of part of the reason why people go to the exurbs is just, if I'm going to have to deal with all this crap, I might as well have more space to walk around. But if they can get everywhere and do everything on foot, then they might be enticed to come back in.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because if emissions are the problem, EVs are a great solution. But if cars are the problem, then electric vehicles are still cars. So
Exactly.
that doesn't help.
It's again, they were a leader in EV promotion, and now they're dialing some of those subsidies back to, again, redirect funds and to hopefully encourage people to do other things. Smart people will look at the example of people of a nation that's ahead of us in some ways and go, we can learn from this. We can learn from this.
And political
We
people will
can-
say, "Oh, we can't have
we
that
can in some
socialism
ways.
here."
We can in some ways, but in other ways, Europe is a lot different than North America when it comes
Well, that's
to
just 'cause-
cities
that's just 'cause
and
you're just like-
population density.
It's just because you're the good Americans. You're still Americans.
Yeah.
I think Mark, you make a good point, and the only thing I would say about that is that Norway certainly isn't your average dense European country, and again, it's not a 1-to-1, because it's it's like making the entire nation Minnesota, or dare I suggest Ontario. I guess Norway's even
There's got to
colder.
there's got to be some months when you don't want to be standing at a bus stop.
Right. And e-bikes, not necessarily a great solution, probably 6 months a year in Norway.
Well, when you look at the geography of Norway, you've got a lot of fjords, you've got a lot of cities that are coastal, you've got a lot of mountains in between. So the population in Norway tends to center around coastal as well as valleys that allow, greater population density. I think in North America we've got a number of different areas that could follow those examples, but there's a lot of it that as Georgia mentioned, we're too spread out. There's always something to be learned, and we can definitely do that in some of our population centers, but in other population centers it makes zero sense based on how spread out we are.
Yeah, you gotta kind of tailor it to the area. You don't want to require that you have X amount of salt on hand in Arizona, but you definitely want that in the Northeast. But at the same time, waiting on a bus in Canada wouldn't be bad if the bus came every 5 minutes.
Well, it's funny, actually. Arizona had great public transportation in Phoenix when I was visiting there and contemplating moving there. Really well done, clean buses, but they weren't very big. And once again, there's that they did invest, but they invested a very small amount into really nice, well done public transportation, but definitely not enough for a major metropolitan center. You really got the sense that you were intended to drive around as you left the main heart of the city. And so there was a real attempt there, and it had good public transportation for what it's worth, but not large enough and not spread out to all the places that it could have gone to.
Yeah, but the smaller buses would be good, like you said, if it spread out everywhere it needed to, and if the schedules make sense and the routes
Sure.
have to make sense too. Because I was watching a guy who said he could have rode the bus, but he would have spent an extra hour unless he got off at some place where he then had to walk across multiple lanes of traffic. So we got a lot of work to go.
We do. But we can do it. Let's go to the next story, which is somewhat related, but not related. Patrick has a really interesting story. Hopefully, it'll happen.
Yeah, so speaking of public transportation, this comes to us from the DCist. A DC council committee has advanced a bill that would give DC residents up to $100 a month to spend on the Metro Rail and Metro Bus, effectively making public transportation free in DC. So there's just a few details I want to give you here. It's a 5-person transportation committee unanimously voted for this bill. That moves it forward to the full legislature where they could vote on it as early as next month, which is next week, actually, October. And one of the quotes was, "It's not cheap, but the repayment to us as a community will be well worth it. They already have a kids ride free program." And we all know that COVID was devastating to public transportation systems. Moves like this will help bring ridership back and make a public reliable transportation system. The initial plan that they proposed had income limits, but they've removed those because it added significantly to the administration cost. And so just make everyone available for it. The one exception to that is if you are a federal employee that already receives a transportation subsidy, then you're not eligible for this one, which makes sense. So there's this last bit here. As our budget grows, we're going to be giving it back to our residents, said Allen. We're going to help them pay to get to and from work, to get to the doctor's office, to get their groceries, or to visit families in the region. And I'm excited about what this program is going to mean for our residents who are struggling to pay for all of their needs and that often rely on public transportation. So that was it. I thought that was a cool story. And you're right, Russell, it does mesh right with what we were just talking about is public transportation has a key role to play.
I like the idea of it just being for everyone, at least everyone in the area. I do kind of the bit about federal employees that's a little weird because unless they just have a discount card or something, then you're suggesting they can only use it to get to and from work, whereas everybody else can use it to get to the doctor, go to lunch, etc. And I also like that because of the way they've done it here, that if this thing gets implemented, the tourists who come in with no car, they still are going to pay whatever the actual price is for this. So you have less congestion, less local pollution, less traffic, all for the local folks. And then you can still keep the prices low for the people visiting, and then you can still kind of use that money to help offset all of the locals getting around as well.
Yeah. Well, I worked for an organization, a city organization that did do a subsidy, and usually, although they do give you an ID, and basically you just flash it and you just ride. So it's not specified that it has to be to or from.
Okay. Yeah, if it's that way, then that's good. It's a lot of things with the government, though, like that's just for us.
No, they
you can only use this computer for work.
It's much easier to just say you ride free on transit, flash your official ID, and you get it, and you go. Because the university does that for university employees too. So yeah, I can get on a Saturday, flash my university ID, and take it to go shopping at the Target on the edge of town and come back. There's no limitations.
You don't want to pay twice for the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same. But no, this is a great plan, and one of the things for longtime listeners, this thing is we don't need a government service to make a profit, and frankly, even sometimes breaking even is a little more than it should. Government services are not businesses and should not be run as a business. We should have the understanding that when we provide these services for low-income people, what do we have? Well, we make it easier for kids to get to school. We make it easier for parents to take their kids to the doctor. They don't have to figure out it's going to be $7 for transportation fees for me to go to the doctor, and then I need to find another $5 per kid to go there and back with the doctor. And that's something that happens um, in throughout many municipalities where you've got to add those costs in. And when you are talking about people who are living from check to check or living, and lots of low income workers also get food stamps, also get assistance for with housing because they are simply not earning enough. Every dollar you make goes in and goes right back out. And so a $20 need trip, which is what public transportation can be for you and members of your family at the same time, that's cutting against your food budget or cutting against the utility bill that needs to be paid. So it's a good idea and it's a good plan. And it also means one of the things that often bothers me the most about upper class neighborhoods is they're not the ones doing the service work. They're not the ones who are cleaning their houses. They're not the ones at their restaurants. They're not the ones who are being the reception workers and the clerical workers and being the cleaners in the businesses that are around them where they can conveniently just zip over to in a car. It is lower income people. And you know what will make your life easier? When that doctor or that business is not going, well, that person couldn't come in today because they literally ran out of money to travel. Or they had to make some choices that basically they can't come in. Or they're so stressed that you wish they didn't come in because they're thinking about the fact that they still need to scrape together another $3 to get back home. Or they're going to have to walk 10 miles. And that is not uncommon. So frankly, as far as I'm concerned, good plan, good idea. We are trying something like that here in YOLO, where the YOLO bus is actually going to take their main route that runs through West Sacramento, and Davis, and they're going to make that free to introduce people to transit because they got their transportation grant and they're able to expand services, and they want to reintroduce people to public transit because yes, they did lose ridership. And this is a great way to get people back on the bus to test it out, to see how easy it is to get around on public transit with less worry. So good on you.
You know what else this does?
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people don't need to park. So those of you that aren't covered by this, that do need to drive, there are now, more parking available. And then, like you mentioned, for these people who are now, like living on hand to mouth, they don't have to shell out, $5 a day to park or $20, $100 a month for the garage.
Or more.
Or way more, depending on the city.
Dun, dun, dun.
I stayed in a hotel in New York for a vendor event before the calamity, and it was $100 for 2 days.
Yeah, that's
I
cheap.
didn't move the car once. Yeah, that was cheap, and it would have been more if I had to move it for anything. And thankfully the vendor paid it because I did not have any idea that it was that bad.
I think one of the amazing things about living in certain cities, and this certainly works better in DC or in San Francisco than it does in Omaha.
Yes.
There are certainly some places where this doesn't work. This isn't a solution for everyone, but what it is a solution in the places where cars are the worst pests, where we don't need more cars and we do need more mobility. Yeah, those were Muni passes from my old, I saved them because I'm weird. But I want to, for those of you that have never done it, or that like buses are just for poor people and all of that kind of crap that goes around, like this sort of like transit shaming that we do if you don't have a car. There's nothing nicer than knowing wherever you are in your area, all you do is get on a bus or a train, you can go somewhere. You've got to pass. You don't have to fumble for change. You look, and nowadays you can look on your phone and it'll say the bus is coming in 7 minutes at this stop. Okay, it's even better than, it used to be you light a cigarette to make the bus come. That was the joke. As soon as you light the cigarette, the bus arrives. I smoked back in those days.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, I found out that we actually don't even need money anymore. You can actually buy a digital pass, buy a bunch of digital tickets, and just show them a pass, and he'll scan it and takes the money right off your phone. You don't have to worry anymore about finding quarters. What can I say? For a kid, the best thing you give them is a free bus ride that goes to a library where they can grab a book.
Park. Or a playground,
library,
or
park,
to see their friends,
something like that. But it gets them out of the house, it gets them moving, it gets them going, and it gives them something to do. It's an investment. We need to learn to think of our communities as something that we invest in just as much, if not more, than the stock market.
Much more.
It'll work in rural and suburban areas. It's just like you said, that you have to get those people out of the mindset that needs to have some sort of immediate return on their part. Also, you would want to be able to do some technological things like an automated transit train, or eventually when this self-driving stuff does work out, then that would be something else you could do in those areas to bring the costs down. But as you said, just figure out what your budget is and just put it out there in those areas. And it's not going to be as nice as a city just because of the distances, but just because you're rural doesn't mean you have to just throw up your hands and say, oh, it's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. And the lesson here is, I think also, don't waste money and time means testing things. Open things up, pay for services. And what that does is the ripple effects from, in this specific instance, not having more cars on the road, not putting more wear and tear on the road, reducing the need for more parking is going to save you money in other areas. Yes, it's not directly attributable, and it's a tough case to make, but it is absolutely factual.
Yeah, look at how everything works in a lot of European countries like Switzerland and stuff with the trains. Like the rich people there ride the train too, and you've got nicer trains, and they're all going to hey, let's just ride the train to lunch. All right, so now they're in town while they're waiting for the train to come back after lunch. Oh, let's go to that shop. We got 10 minutes till the train comes back.
Yeah.
What do? They spent some money downtown.
Yep. Oh, New York is definitely the ecumenical transportation place. And yes, we have so much. It's such a broad cross section that there are some places where you can get very expensive gear just because you're under in the subway where they have lots of shops. It was very strange leaving New York to come to places and finding out that there was actually a class barrier over who would use public transportation versus not.
Yep.
Also have to get rid of that problem that Atlanta and so many other places have. Oh, we don't want those people coming on our. Let's not even make any stops because we don't want those people.
Oh yeah, the NIMBYism in public transportation. Hand in hand.
You know who rides the trains? You're going to invite crime into my neighborhood.
Yep, that I've actually seen that used, that exact argument, and by crime they mean people that don't look like me.
Exactly,
those people,
scary people.
Yes, the scary ones. Well, speaking of scary, Patrick has a story that makes me really. Oh no, I'm sorry. Kacey has a story that makes me really sad.
So
not Kacey's story.
Yes. So if you were in line for a Hummer EV, well, it's been they've cut off the line, so you can't get in line if you were planning to get into it, which is kind of weird for me because they aren't making that many at all. Like, was it 24 a month or 24 a week? And they cost $112,000 to start a base. So I didn't expect that this would ever be an article that they had sold out of these things. They weigh 9,000 pounds, and they're just like every other Hummer before them except the H3. They're just large. They if you park one in a normal parking space, you got to choose who you're screwing over, the guy next to you or the minivan on the other side, to see who can't open their doors all the way because you're there. That's about it with this.
90,000 orders though.
Right.
Yeah.
90,000. So there's 90,000 people out there that want to blow $100,000 on one of these vehicles, either the pickup truck style one or the SUV style one. So it's obviously there's more uptake than I expected.
So that
It's
is
true.
$10.08 billion in MSRP. And right now the dealerships aren't selling these things for MSRP for most part.
Right.
Well,
I got nothing. It makes me sad that we're selling so many of these enormous
The only good
things.
thing about this is that they're not buying a
No.
gas equivalent
that
vehicle.
is literally the
Yes.
one good thing that we can take from this. Look, people, I'm not saying you have to, but if you want to throw away $100,000 on a status symbol, donate it to me.
I mean, we're
If
not
you-
even talking. We're not even talking like a car that, like, if you check all the boxes, it scrapes up. It scrapes up
I have movies to
100,000.
make. I could make like 5 for 100,000. Come on,
Right,
donate me that, because at least I'm putting something creative out into the ether. You are just like a very large electric tank that you really can't fit into a parking spot, and you're just
Right.
driving 5 feet to impress your friends.
The
Sorry,
battery
that's really
weighs
what's happening.
the battery weighs more than most of the cars on the road today.
Bless
I
your
just-
hearts.
But
I just want to say this about the only good thing about the Hummer is that it's taking gas Hummers off the road. Yeah, but
But
I remember a time when gas was expensive and most of
People
those
still buy
Hummers
them.
in California got parked and you never saw them on the road. And then gas got cheap a little while ago and everybody's back on the road in their Hummers.
yeah, the
Hummers are the trophy wives of cars. They really are, even more so than Lamborghinis, because they really are.
Cetaceous.
It's just, I am big, I'm obnoxious, I am rich, and I can barely handle whatever this is that I have next to me. But you're gonna watch me pretend that I can, and that's what a Hummer is. So once again, we can't control what you do with your money, but there are just so many other better things you could do with it. And honestly, the cutting production because they can't fulfill as many orders. This is a good problem for GM to have.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it to me that the next release will have the exact same problem. I missed my chance to get the first Hummer, but I'm definitely getting the second one.
Yeah, but see, the thing with this one is that it's not like it does nothing for the whole electric cars are expensive, because like I said, this is the base model, so it's not like, oh, I started at 60 and I got a little happy checking all the boxes and I got the special color and I got all the stuff the dealer can bolt
Kacey,
on. And,
that is the whole point. If you can't afford it, if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
but it's a
It is-
GM. It's not like I'm buying a Bentley.
And but that's the thing. It is the Hummer was the same thing, prestigious gas, car for GM. This is La Perle Lingerie, and it's going to be bought by somebody boorish. Automatically someone boorish is buying that Hummer, and
Yeah.
let's think of another positive. You understand right away that you don't want to be stuck at a dining room table with this person. You drove an electric Hummer. I think I'll take takeout. Thank you.
I just hope that when Mary was leading, she copied Elon's idea that safety should be free and standard, because 9,000 pounds, you cannot see a child standing in front of the bumper. I mean, it's got
Think of the
cameras for that,
road
but
wear
the camera
and
might not be
tear
on.
that
Road wear
Hummer-
and tear. I mean, they don't care. They're spending a lot on tires.
But they're not driving it to get from A to Z. This is not a car they are driving to get. This is a car you basically take out on parade to show your status off. This is just a very expensive status symbol. And
Yeah, I don't think too many people are going to use the off-road modes. You've got the crab walk, you've got the raising suspension, you've got the wheels.
It made more sense when they were buying
Hummers.
Hummers and basically planning to cause the apocalypse through climate change. So maybe this is, okay, I can see how this could work out. Destroy the planet, but you've got the Hummer officially.
Before
for
this
as
thing
long
was
as you got
announced,
gas.
right? Before this thing was announced, I didn't think there would ever be another electric car with worse fuel economy than I have, and now there's 3. I don't think there'll be anything less than this, but I don't want to be proven wrong again either.
Never
Yeah.
challenge a moron. They can rise
what
or
is- what
sink
is
to
it?
the occasion.
Was it 45 miles per gallon equivalent, or so? I mean, that's great compared to a regular Hummer, but that's the worst out of all the EVs, like, for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And yet it still effectively competes with the Prius.
Yes.
Well, let's go to a next story, maybe a little bit brighter spot. I don't
Yeah,
know.
why not?
Maybe Mark has some good news about a new efficient community.
Yes, this community called Easton Park, based near Austin, uh, has a bright spot, I think. They are offering the ability to add both solar panels as well as battery storage to homes as they're built new. And I think the big plus here is that if you give a consumer the ability to buy into a new product that has these additions to what a regular home has, there's a number of efficiencies that can be put in place to make that price point a little better. The house can be situated in such a way that it's facing the south, and the roof that the panels will be on will be facing the sun a little bit better, and they can be more efficient in collection. As well as, since this is in Texas, you're going to have 12,000 homes that will have their own battery power backup for any issues that happen in the summer or winter in Texas, as well as being able to be connected to a group of homes for a virtual power plant to help the local utility shave off some peaker plant production, or to even out the grid, either adding or taking away based on what's required at that time. But I think the real advantage here is that if more home builders start to offer these plans to new home buyers, it's a lot easier for a new home buyer to add on these extra packages to make their homes more efficient and more resilient for climate change. And it's easier for that homeowner since the construction is done by the same company that builds the house.
Mhm.
And they have planned for that community to be able to handle that load. So I think this is a bright spot in construction, and I hope that this is a successful implementation here in Austin. And even better, I hope that others that are in the construction industry see that this can be a success elsewhere in the country, because having these little pockets, these communities that are self-sufficient in ways and able to get that ability to become a virtual power plant will not only help that local community, but it'll help the entire city, and in some cases region, for those areas. So this is good news, and I'm glad to see that someone is starting to move with this, and I just hope to see more of this as time goes along.
Yeah, it's a good multi-pronged approach. I mean, it's good for the homeowner, it's good for the area, it's good for the grid, good for the environment, and also these roofs are a little bit stronger than the free roofs you would find on most places, because they've got a certain rating for both ice and hail and hurricanes and tornadoes and such. So with the more extreme weather events we're going to have going forward, this will mean less need to deal with insurance, less need to have to actually get up there and do maintenance and repairs on them. So combine that with reducing the carbon footprint for the city.
I'm sorry, my laughter was based on the fact that a while ago, a couple of years ago, I spent some time in Texas. Being a big anti-Texas person, a friend of mine invited me out, and I stayed with him and his wife there outside of Dallas, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about Texas. It opened my eyes. But one of the things that I learned was that it is not uncommon in Texas to replace your roof and let me guess, anyone on the panel want to guess the number of years I'm going to, yeah.
What?
Really?
No
Wow,
way.
why?
Storms, hail, especially in Texas, is horrible. And it is difficult and expensive to find insurance that will cover your roof or cover your roof for more than 40% of the cost of replacement, because
Ooh.
these storms shred roofs regularly.
Wow.
So in a sense, now Austin, not quite as bad as northern Texas, Dallas, but it's going to be a good test. It's going to be a very good test. But otherwise, I'm 150% behind this. Absolutely.
That just, wow. 5 years, huh?
At
Yeah.
I think he replaced 2 roofs in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. The storms down there it's legendary. I mean,
Wouldn't take long for you to consider a steel roof or something else that would be a lot more hardier if you're replacing 2 roofs in 5 years. Like that's crazy money.
it's isn't it?
The beauty of this though is that it's got a good 20-year warranty on it. It's got a wind rating of hurricane, I think at least category 4, but maybe category 5. And so with that 20 years, it used to be 20 years for production and then lifetime, and then they gave up that whole lifetime thing. So
yeah. Well, we'll
I think
see.
it's 20 and 30 now. I'd have to look it up again to see what the new warranty is.
Far more than 5.
Way more than 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Which honestly could put them on the hook for that, and could be expensive.
Yeah, we upgraded it to the new Gorilla Glass over what we had last time.
Yeah.
Because we were paying out too much.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to our next story about, it's not warranty, but it's a recall. Kacey has the details.
Last week we talked about the troubles that Nikola was having with their business and their ex-CEO, and well, the hits just keep on coming for them. Now they have to recall 93 of their Nikola Tre, which are the cab-over battery electric trucks. So these aren't the hydrogen things that they said they could make that they haven't proven they can do yet. And what it is that the seatbelts may not be secured to the cab correctly, which is terrible, because not only do you have a crash and all that, but now you're dealing with like victim families, and like if something happens, they need to wrestle this thing to a stop, and not having properly secured seatbelts is just bad all around. And so now they've recalled all 93 of them, and they'll make it right. They're going to torque them down correctly and then put them back on the road.
Wow, the most surprising thing in this story was they have 93.
93.
I had no idea they had so many out there already.
Right. That's like they already started with these things. 93.
Well, it actually might be more, because it seems like they're only recalling 93.
Yeah. These are the ones we know about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be 100% of them, don't you think?
It's pretty close.
I'm like everyone else. I'm shocked that there are 93 on the road. So,
oh wait, yes, it is all of them. Reading the safety recall,
it is all. Of them.
It says estimated percentage with defect, 100%.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Well, hey, cheers to them for getting 93. I didn't think that what was essentially like what Faraday Future Light would actually have built 93 of something and put them on the road. I mean,
it's all downhill from here.
Ooh, that hurts.
Speaking of Faraday Future, a friend in one of our groups sent us a picture. They were asking if it was the Lyric, and I'm like, "There's no way that's the Lyric. That looks like the FF91." And then I went back and looked at pictures, and I sent them the same angle. I'm like, "That's the FF91," and nobody responded. But I was surprised to see it out on the road. I was like, unless they're like scrounging up some more investors, like you wouldn't expect that thing to be on the road anytime soon. But maybe they're getting close. Maybe.
Well, our next story kind of makes me sad. And I'm going to do it with a little bit of costume change here. So excuse me.
Whoa.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
So one of the companies that I really like Rivian. I'm a Rivian fan. But sadly, the American Prospect did a story. Let's see, Lee Harris published, in fact, today, talking about the title of the article sort of says it all: industrial policy without industrial unions. It's kind of the old shenanigans, like where if nobody's really watching, companies do some pretty shady shit. And in this case, Rivian got a ton of money to do some good things, to revitalize a dead Mitsubishi manufacturing plant in a town that desperately needed the jobs. And then Rivian went and hired a whole shitload of people from out of state. And by out of state, I mean probably Mexico.
That state, all right.
To work in their
What?
factory, rather than hiring the people from Normal, Illinois that used to work at the Mitsubishi plant, or
that's
just people in
bad.
Illinois that needed the jobs. there's other complaints in the article about the way Rivian is treating their employees. And I don't necessarily want to go into that other than to say, I just over and over again, I want these new industries, these new businesses that are leading, that are making great products that we need to be good in all aspects. You don't get to be assholes because you're making electric cars. You still have to treat your employees right. You still have to do what you say you're going to do, comply with the spirit as well as the letter of the law. And do I want them to go out of business because they hired expensive American workers? You know what? If they can't do it here and they said they were going to do it here and they took subsidies for it, yeah, I want them to go out of business.
Yeah, somebody will do it better. That's the truth. Somebody will make it work.
So, yeah, I'm a proud UFCW member. I'm a union supporter. And there you go.
Well, I will say without unions, the railroad workers wouldn't have sick days, which
they
like
already
in 2022 they didn't have sick days.
They barely have sick days. They
Wow.
don't get vacations. They don't get weekends. They
Wow.
are
Why?
absolutely abused.
Because they're essential.
Essential worker.
The
I
biggest
am a proud
lie.
UAW member. I work for a union, and to me, the whole point of union membership is because workers are an asset. And I'm really tired of businesses treating workers, the people who make the money for the bosses, as if they're not an asset, they are a liability. That's bull. And it's worse when you have these tech startups who are all like, we're throwing off the old ways, man. We're going to disrupt. Yeah, your idea of disruption is usually to reinvent something that was cheaper and better made before you disrupted it, and then pretend that you came up with something because you put an app on it. So, and it's hilarious to me that the first thing they tend to do is union bust and work really hard to not hire people for good wages, except for their cool contingent in management or certain areas. Those guys will get the benefits. You see it all the time, that all the disruption is another form of peasantry, and for them to be bringing in out of state, out of region workers to take the jobs that they basically, if they didn't outright promise, then they at least implied that they were those bringing those jobs to this community in exchange for what's often very expensive tax breaks and subsidies, then they should not get them. You either work with what you agreed to or you lose it. And that is one of the problems with all of these bills and across the board. It's always a good attempt. That's the problem with legislation. You don't know what people will do with it until it's passed and you start to implement it and you see where the cracks are. And this is a massive crack. It's a loophole that Rivian is exploiting, and they need to be called up on the carpet for it, and they need to be forced, if at all possible, to stop importing workers and to use local workers. And Biden has been pretty good for labor. He's a very strong contingent. We just passed the Farm Workers United bill today that finally got signed by Newsom, who was blocking it, largely due to his own interests as a vintner and a farm owner, which I did not know. But he had promised not to sign it. He was opposed to it. And there was a massive march that took over a week, and they've been actually out there protesting and asking him to sign it now for a week. Biden actually spoke up and said, hey, this is a good bill and it should be signed. And Garrett Newsom was like, I don't feel like it. And he finally caved today and he did sign it. And it's one of the things is that it's good to have a strong president. And a lot of people forget that who you elect has a lot to do with whether or not your union has power. And we need to make full use of having a friend in office, and definitely work against Rivian being able to cheat like this, because they're getting millions from us. They're getting millions from Normal. They're getting millions from the government. And the implication was that when they brought their factory there, that the people there who were ready and willing to work and bring skills and knowledge of all the local laws and ordinances were going to get first crack at those jobs. And what instead they are seeing is Rivian saying, nope, we're going to skip over you completely and bring in people who honestly shouldn't be building these things here because they don't necessarily know what they're doing to make it conform to the law, which means that Rivian is actually eating a cost again. Infuriating.
Yes.
It sounds like the incentives should have had these stipulations written into the contract.
You know, one of the most amusing things with the more corporate friendly people in office is always, "Oh, well, of course they're going to do it the right way." Now, you and I, being experienced people, no, that's bullshit. They will find every way to work a loop. But one of the most amusing parts of watching people in elected office is seeing how, for some things, they will be newborn and freshly found under a cabbage leaf, acting as though that is impossible. There's no way that anyone would ever cheat like this.
It's still cheating, even though it's not in the contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the tax
it's
incentives, the federal subsidies. I think, I mean, that's a fair point, Patrick. It is, but it's still cheating. And like I said, I'm such an ideologue. I had hoped that like the new green industries would be better than the shitty old legacy ones that the new green industries love to say they're better than.
You gotta write it down. That way they have to,
You got
have to comply.
Codify it into
You
law.
already
And
paid. Yeah, you're already paying the government lawyer.
Yeah, I mean,
They hire bean counters too, so
it's true. And
I
the
guess.
thing is
Shareholders.
that always remember that some of the most progressive campaigns and industries and organizations often had very, very, very ugly labor fights when their workplaces wanted to be organized and represented by a union.
Well, let's go for some happy news. Georgia, you have some happy news about.
I do. I think it looks like I'm on the happy news beat, in fact.
Yay.
And you guys know why I'm doing this. I want you to fully follow the effect of a law from start to finish, technical finish, because really laws continue and how they adapt and change society will continue long after we're gone, especially good law, we're hoping. And that's why I'm sticking with it and making sure you know. So put your little hands together, everybody, and give it a good clap. All 50 states have gotten an okay.
What was that?
Perfect. I love it. And it's
Nice.
great.
Is that Kacey? It's got to
That
be
is
Kacey.
Kacey.
Okay, thank you.
Got the noise box.
Way to go, Kacey.
Every single one of our 50 contiguous United States and probably Hawaii and the rest. Yeah, okay. Everybody's good. They've gotten their final okay to build the highway EV charging network. Why does it take so long? Some of you might be asking. Because the plans have to be approved at the DOT. And now that they're all approved, yes, final approval was Tuesday, and they can start construction on the first nationwide network of EV charging stations. We're hoping for one roughly every 50 miles along interstate highways. And let's see, that will trigger the release of $1.5 billion in federal funds to all jurisdictions nationwide, or $5 billion over 5 years, to install or upgrade chargers along 75,000 miles of highway from coast to coast, with the goal of 500,000. That is 500,000 EV chargers nationwide. The plans for the other 33 states and the District of Columbia was approved earlier this month. So yeah, even those states where their leadership is railing against EVs and climate change actions have submitted.
Texas.
Yeah,
Not just them, but yes, them too.
not just that, but yeah, but they are approved, and they are about to get a nice sack of cash to go work on it. And I don't know if I've explained the difference between, say, block grants and directed funds, but hopefully, because this does happen with anything with a block that's a block grant. A block grant is funds given to a state or a city or any municipality, and basically they get an amount of money and then they figure out what to do with it. And then there is a funding grant that comes from the federal government or the state government, and a municipality gets that, and that is earmarked very specifically, and it has to go exactly to projects that are like what they agreed to when they took that money. So my hope is there is no block granting at all in this program, and based on the structure of how this money was released, everybody had to submit a plan, had to be approved, and once it's all fully approved across all 50 states, it got released. Fingers crossed that we're not going to see any problems where such and such governor, such and such state took money meant for X and spent it all on Brett Favre's stadium or something like that.
I wonder what North Carolina's going to do when they're ripping out the free chargers.
Is there anybody in football who wants like a gym or something built? I just want to know before we get the next scandal.
Patrick, you said that this covers DC and Puerto Rico as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
It covers all states. So, and it's a great opportunity for Puerto Rico because honestly, and Luma, look that up if you don't know what that is. So I think that that's great. What can I say? I think we should be very happy about this. This is between this and the tax credits. It's looking pretty good to both own an EV or get an EV. Right?
Electrify all the things.
Electrify all the things, and also with sustainable electricity, because hopefully we'll be changing over to that too.
I mean, that just makes sense. I mean, you get free electricity or you could pay to make it. Come on now.
Yeah. I'm a little, this is great news. I'm a little worried that in some states they're not going to administer it properly because they don't believe in this. Yeah. I'm also worried that even in the states that do want to do it right, there's going to be this rush to just get them in the ground as fast as possible. And then they're going to have reliability problems and other issues. So we'll see how it plays out. I've got my fingers crossed, but I'm a little skeptical.
I think you have a good right to be. I understand. I'm not skeptical because, like most naive children, I have no idea what can go wrong, but I know we will find out when it does. The reason why I am not skeptical is I fully expect that to happen. I expect that to happen because even when you try to do good things, especially with legislation and government, somewhere, somehow, there's too many moving parts for something not to get stuck in them. Mm-hmm. And you will have places like California for whom, whether or not I have a problem with Gavin Newsom on one issue, I am fairly confident in his leadership and the fact that he will try to implement this to the best of his ability. There's going to be problems in some of our redder counties and cities. I think that that's going to be an issue. I think we haven't even thought about the vandalism issue. That's an issue. And we still have a grid that needs upgrading throughout all of the contiguous U.S. and beyond, and Puerto Rico. But I expect problems. But that's the thing.
That doesn't mean you don't try.
You don't try, and there's no solution that is going to fit every aspect of life and is permanently correct. Mm-hmm. we like to think that we create something and it fixes a problem and we're done. The problem is that we don't stop at one point. We keep existing past that point, and that means solutions will have to be reviewed, adapted, and they change as we change. And that's the nature of the business. And once we learn more about the things that we don't know, even as we start this project, things will change and that will be adapted. And once again, you all know my mantra. Who you elect in the next elections will determine whether or not this maintains its funding, whether or not it will be properly installed in various places, whether it will be continued and supported. If you want good things, you got to keep voting for people who also support that same good thing. And that's just how it works. There's no other way.
Indeed.
Vote for the wrong person, you might not get to vote anymore.
Speaking as a black female, yes, I fully understand.
I don't
that
even
one.
think there's a might involved there, but
Well,
If you listen to what they say, then yeah, there's no might.
there's no might about that.
excellent. Well, let's go back to Georgia for the next story. It's Georgia and then Georgia
Wow,
with a related story.
it's two Georges. I'm sorry. Let's see. You're charging your electric car the wrong way. How many of you saw that, especially if you were in San Francisco, because it came out from the Chronicle and it's also in CNET? You're charging the wrong way. And you're going, what the hell are you talking about? I'm plugged in and my car is charged. Hold up.
It's a Boston story.
Wow, yeah.
Nah, I'd have to talk like this, a little bit more flat, a little more open. Because you're not from Boston. You got that kind of a drawl. You talk like that. Some beer. All right. Back to the story. So are we charging the wrong way? No, is the Stanford study, because I know some people were actually kind of misrepresenting it a little bit. They're talking about overnight EV charging. And it sounds pretty cool for you, right? You come in after a long day, you've driven backward and forward, car needs a bit of a charge, you plug it in at night, you go to bed, you wake up, freshly charged, right? Yes, it works well for you as an individual, but what they're really talking about is the impact on the grid. And they feel that it is at the best time to charge your car is actually at a workplace or public charger when you have daytime solar providing the power, as opposed to you doing it when the grid is working harder in the late afternoon and early evening because there's no sun. So that is what they're talking about when they are talking about, are you charging wrong? Because to an extent, you're right in how you do it because it's great for you. But are you getting charged off of solar power that is easily available, ready, just refreshing itself solar? Or are you pulling from the batteries and pulling from the grid itself? And what they like you to do is rethink how you charge to not just be for your car and your home, but also consider the grid and the burden it's bearing when you are trying to work at night and charge your car. So that's what they're trying to get people to rethink, not that you're doing it wrong. You are doing it perfectly according to the book. It's just that once again, we learn more as we do more. And what we're learning is that if you can charge it during the day, during the afternoon, when we have all the sun in the world to charge your car and keep your car from pulling directly from the electrical grid, it's actually better for the society. So this is not that you're doing it wrong. It's a rethink. So there you are.
Quick way to fix this is through what they charge for it.
Pricing.
Absolutely. It's done already in multiple tiered systems. Here in Ontario, the best rate you can get is overnight because that's when they have the most excess energy. But in areas across the country that have better abundancy during the day, just change the rates. And the EV owners will flock in droves to charge at those particular times. If you just price it the way you want them to use it, it'll get used that way.
You can also do, if you have enough spots and plugs, you can have everybody plug in, and then you can say, hey, set your budget. And if it's too expensive, your car just stops charging. And then when the sun comes out or the wind starts blowing, your car starts charging again because it got cheap again.
Right.
Mr. Bruce Nelson in the comments brings up a good point.
Sorry, Pat, I had to mute you there.
What's that?
I don't know. This microphone must have gone out.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bruce Nelson, I don't know. Was that the magic word? Because that kind of made it go crazy.
Sorry, everybody.
You've summoned Beetlejuice. Thank you.
Wow. Well, he points out that 50% of his grid power in Iowa comes from wind. So it might depend on the mix. And you're correct, because this is really a study that was mostly related to the Western grid. So you're not doing it wrong. We're just learning more about how our individual grid systems have to operate for the most sustainable mix of energy and taxation of the system. Okay? And that's what I just wanted to cover that, because I thought it was funny that they were telling everybody, you're doing it wrong. And it's like, how the hell am I doing it wrong? This is the only way you can do it.
JT
Well
says, stop sticking the microphone out of a moving car.
I swear to God, it was not me.
Please stop. Yeah. Thank you, JT. Good advice. Good advice. Well, let's go to Kacey for our final story of the night. And it is strangely applicable to what is happening right now in Florida.
Absolutely. When I saw the article, I was intrigued. And then this is in Ars Technica. And everything that they wrote seemed factual, but the slits just seemed a little weird. It seemed like, well, the article title is "This should be the absolute peak of hurricane season, but it's dead quiet out there." But it seemed that this author was rooting for the hurricanes, which I don't. As somebody who had to leave to get out of the way of hurricanes numerous times, I don't ever root for the hurricanes. But part of what happened to cause the hurricane season to be quieter this year than it has been in years past, especially recent ones where we ran out of letters, the La Nina and extra dust storms off of Africa. But it didn't mean none, as we can see by Cuba and Canada just got hit. What was it, day before yesterday? Florida is undergoing it right now. Puerto Rico was hit recently. So it's not zero, and that's why I was like, why is this guy cheering for the hurricanes? But it was an interesting read over at Ars Technica about why it is a quieter season this time around. And then the only thing that threw me was that it seemed that they were cheering for it to not be quiet.
Did that resonate with anybody else as maybe being a bit specious? Uh-oh. Bye. Hello, Patrick, and bye.
All right. Is it working now?
Yes, you're back.
Okay.
I just questioned the premise of the story, and it's easy. It's sort of like, hey, it's cold. There's no global warming. You know what I mean?
Right. And then immediately after he wrote that and complained that there's not enough hurricanes, we get 4?
Yeah. It's just piss poor timing at the very least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm.
Like I read it before this one was tracking at Florida, and I was like, "Do you want hurricanes? Because this is how you get hurricanes." And then, boom.
There is that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's all I got on that. I just wanted to point out that there was a reason there were fewer of them, and then why the hell do you want more of them?
Right. Let's not have more of them.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's do some shout outs and say goodnight. I'm going to start with Kacey Green.
Hello. So I do streams on Sundays, and then I make videos, and sometimes I edit them, and sometimes I put them on the channel. We'll see what my schedule starts to look like, but I do the live streams every week. Haven't missed one from the birth of the child on through today so far. So you can find that at youtube.com/Kacey Green. That's KACEYGREEN.
There you go. Do visit Kacey's channel and do subscribe, because you should, because there's great stuff going on there. Mr. Mark Coughlin.
I would like to ask you, if you're still watching at this point,
Wow.
you must really like electric vehicles and, and us as general. What I would suggest is, if you do like EVs and you'd like to learn a little bit more, there's a thing called National Drive Electric Week, which has happening this week to the end of October 2nd. So look it up on the website, National Drive Electric Week, and find an event that's happening in your neighborhood on the weekend maybe, and sign up. Go out and enjoy it. Talk to other EV owners, learn about EVs, get your questions answered. It's a lot of resources out there. The answers are out there. All you have to do is ask. So look that up and join us for National Drive Electric Week, check out the website. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. And please do. National Drive Electric Week is one of the coolest things, in my opinion, the EV community's done. It's great, genuine grassroots outreach. It has not yet managed to be co-opted by a whole bunch of large corporations that hire employees from Texas or anybody else. It's EV organizations and owners getting together to go, hey, check this out. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing. Patrick Connor, I
Hello.
know you have something to plug.
Yeah, I'm glad I got the mic working again. So last week, something really cool happened here in Oregon.
Uh-oh.
Our last coal plant that we had in the state was destroyed. There's this really cool video of the smokestack as it falls over and crash. It is gone. It's been shut down for 2 years. So this was just the demolishing of that building. But it was still a cool milestone of moving us forward towards our future free from fossil fuels. Yes. As always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and we are doing one of those ride and drive national drive electric week events. So yeah, check that out. And if you're in this area, come see it. And you might even get to go to a ride and drive and get behind the wheel yourself and see how it feels like if you haven't driven an EV. Very cool. And my last plug is a blog at carswithcords.net. Mark asked me how many times my batteries have been dispatched by my local utility to help the grid out. And I was like, that's a good question. I don't know, but I have a record because they send me every time. They send me an opt-out, and I can decide to stay or opt out. So I looked at all those records and made a blog post about it. You can check it out. Thanks.
That's carswithcords.net. Go to Patrick, read his stories, argue with him because I'm too busy right now.
Entertain Patrick.
Georgia McKenzie, please bring us home.
Hi, everybody. You've been with us for 1 hour and 7 whole minutes. That means you like us. You really like us. So go on ahead and hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? And remember, each like that you do helps us with the algorithm. It says, hey, this is pretty cool content. Let's share it with other people. So your likes are appreciated as well. Thank you for spending this time with us. And don't forget, when you're done here, want to learn more about Tesla? Head on over to the Tesla Life. He's covering everything, Mr. Mark Coughlin, and he's got all the information. He even reads stock stuff, which I will not. Mark shaking his head.
Mark has stock tips, right? Hot stock tips. No
Tesla?
stock tips.
None.
All about Tesla. So go ahead, hit like and subscribe, and then you got Kacey Green's channel, and that's, you know where to find him, YouTube, Kacey Green. And he's going to be telling you what's going on with all the new downloadable content for your Tesla. He's testing it out. He's giving it instructions. He's basically building his own robot army and raising his child to rule after him in a dynasty. And you want to support that. So hit like, hit subscribe. Go on ahead. Enjoy all of it. Oh, back to you, Russell.
I had no idea Kacey was building a robot army.
Why not?
Am I Optimus Prime robots? I just want to know, do they do the dance all the time? Like when they're not
this one
busy?
dances.
There we go. There we go. As always, I want to thank Michael Manring for our theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Buy a song, buy an album, buy something. I want to thank Mark Coughlin, Kacey Green, Patrick Connor, and of course, Georgia McKenzie for giving up another hour of their life they will never get back. Thank you so much. Everybody in the chat room, June and Bruce and JT and Hockey Day and Zach. Zach, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that very much. Did I miss anybody? No, I think that's everyone. Thank you so much for coming in. And of course, all of you out there who are listening and or watching, and I'm sorry if you're watching, I do need a haircut. You're the reason we do the show. So thank you so much for being there. Tune in next week and find out what drives us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.